Never Say Never Again was released in 1983 and stars Sean Connery himself, returning to the role 12 years after Diamonds Are Forever. Hold on a minute, an official Bond movie with Sean Connery was made outside of the series? How did that happen, you might be asking? Well, enter Kevin McClory. In the 50s, Kevin, Ian Fleming and Jack Whittingham developed a screenplay to be the first James Bond film, well before the Eon series started. Kevin co-created a bunch of elements like Spectre, Blofeld, and he redid the way the Bond was to be portrayed on screen. The project came to a halt, but later on Ian Fleming decided to use a lot of this screenplay as a basis of the Thunderball novel, without credit or permission to the other people involved. This sparked some messy legal situations and even resulted in Kevin McClory receiving producer credit on the Thunderball movie as compensation. He also retained the rights to use the original screenplay in his own Bond movie years later. His attempts were halted multiple times and there were some pretty big problems between the Bond producers and him. Eventually Kevin ended up getting his way and created Never Say Never Again. I mentioned in my For Your Eyes Only review that the series wasn't allowed to use Spectre or Blofeld later on, and this explains why, as Kevin didn't give permission to use these elements. There's a lot more to the case, but time-wise I don't want to go too much into it. I suggest looking it up if you want to know a bit more about the situation. Anyway, with that out of the way we can talk about the actual film. This lacks Bond staples like the John Barry music, the gun barrel opening and other actors besides Connery. The film was actually directed by Irvin Kershner, who is well known for directing The Empire Strikes Back. Now an important point about the film was that they were constrained to the story of the original script that McClory worked on, so it's essentially a remake of Thunderball. It came out the same year as Octopussy, and the press built it up as Battle of the Bonds, to see which movie was more successful. It was seemingly quite well received by critics on release, and it did well financially, but not quite as well as the official Roger Moore entry that year. But what do I think of this movie? Well, to tell you the truth, I think it's pretty crap. They have Connery back, but that doesn't mean the movie is good. I would have liked to see how well it would have done financially without him starring. It feels cheap, despite the large budget, and I was honestly surprised with how lazy the movie was from a technical standpoint, even with some really talented people behind the camera. This could have been a really cool movie to see a different version of Bond, and they wasted the chance completely. Funnily enough, all this did was make Broccoli's movies look even better. Well, those are the other Bond movies made, but did you know about James Bond Jr.? Yep, in the early 90s there was a Saturday morning cartoon of the franchise. It follows the adventures of James Bond's nephew, a young student. There are supporting characters inspired by characters from the movies and updated versions of villains such as Jules, Goldfinger, Knick-Knack, Dr. No and so on. As you can see from the intro, it's quite a departure from the films, but it's a decent kids cartoon, it's entertaining. It also had quite a lot of merchandise made for it, like toys, video games and books. You weren't really a real franchise unless you had a Saturday morning cartoon, right? Around the world. We could go on a lot further with James Bond novels, comics, radio plays and video games, but we have to draw the line somewhere. I hope you enjoyed this look into the other side of Bond, which isn't normally looked at due to the popularity of the main series overshadowing these works.